Hi, I'm Vanda Brady. I'm a correspondent of ABS-CBN Europe, and I'm just here to ask a few questions now that you have been appointed as the Philippine Consul to Ireland. The Filipino migrant community are very eager to find out what your plans are. So to start off, I'd like to know, first and foremost, why you applied for the position and how did this all happen?
First of all, thank you for coming. I welcome the opportunity to enlighten the community on what the plans are and answer any questions you may have. To put it in perspective, this started many years ago. I was educated in the Philippines. I'd done my undergraduate there. I then came back to Ireland, very grateful for the education that I had in the Philippines, and volunteered my service to the then newly opened Philippine Embassy under Ambassador Abadilla. That quickly turned into me being hired by the embassy to help them open and establish a full presence. They were in temporary offices when I joined. Later, as the time passed, the embassy received notification that they will be closed. They asked my assistance in finding a new honorary consul. I nominated the previous consul, my predecessor, and he put himself forward for the job. He asked me then to come on board as Director of Operations and run the day-to-day operations of the Consulate. I held this position for 5 years. At the time then, I felt it was the right time to move on. I moved on, took a short break and quickly immersed myself in Outreach Ireland, which was doing a lot of the same work in a different fashion. We worked with the Philippine Embassy in facilitating the outreach missions, and it was something I really enjoyed. The position became available, I believe, August 2018. I initially didn't want to apply. I was happy with the core group in Outreach Ireland, the services we were giving and the community activity we were conducting. But with a little bit of encouragement from the Outreach Ireland management side of things, the management team, I, with their support, put myself forward for the position. And it was a very difficult interview. It was an even more rigorous vetting because I had lived abroad. I've lived in the Middle East, I've lived in the Philippines, and I've lived in Ireland. So I had Philippine NVI investigation and background checks. I had Interpol because of the time I spent in the Middle East, and then I had the Irish Garrett vetting. So it took some time, but thankfully they approved my appointment on the 7th of April. The Secretary for Foreign Affairs signed my appointment, so I was approved.
So the main things that make you the best candidate for the position was your experience, your previous experience with the consulate, as well as your connections to the Philippines.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm the best candidate. The Ambassador Lag Mayo and his panel, his interview panel, decided that I was the chosen candidate. I was privileged to be nominated by the ambassador. I was even more privileged to be appointed. And my goal now is to start the services and start delivering a high level of services to the Filipino community and give them the services that I feel they need and I feel they deserve, and the services that they're going to tell me that they need, and I'll try my best to deliver them.
Okay, so we move on now to what is a consulate. A lot of people are not really sure about the difference between a consulate and an embassy. Can you explain to us briefly what the difference is?
To start, it would be easier to start with the embassy. So the Philippine Embassy is the Philippine government outside of the country. So in this case, we have Ambassador Lag Mayo and his embassy team. Ambassador Lag Mayo would be a representative of the Philippine president in the UK and Ireland. And it's both. It's not only the UK, it's Ireland. So the embassy would provide every form of consular service available, particularly and most relevant to the community here in Ireland would be passport renewals. Because of the nature of Philippine passport renewal, biometric, it needs to be done in front of an embassy personnel. It needs to be done with all of the software and stuff like that that's available to the embassy, and that's why they conduct outreach missions. An honorary consulate is, the embassy would all have career diplomats, they're paid civil servants. And that is their job until they decide to leave it. An honorary consul, on the other hand, is a part-time position. It's voluntary. It's unfunded by the Philippine government. There's actually legislation preventing the government from funding it. So there's no funding received. It's generally taken up by someone that is established in business and has strong links with the Philippines. And thankfully, I have both. So I have an honorary consulate about to open here in Ireland. We'll be conducting consular services, which is broad and wide-reaching, but does not include passport renewal because of the limitations of the Department of Foreign Affairs. And while it would be great to lobby to allow honorary consuls to renew passports, it would internationally weaken the Philippine passport. The Philippine passport is growing, it's growing in strength, and that's what allows Filipinos to travel and have access to various different countries. As soon as you have a non-government official renewing a passport, it weakens that strength, and it will impose restrictions worldwide on Filipino nationals. So that's one of the many reasons why I can't renew passports. The services I can offer are legalisation of documents, NBI fingerprinting, an assistance to national programme, which I'll expand on in a moment, and cultural engagement, trade engagement, investment, tourism. Just going back to the broad consular services and the services that most people will engage with initially would be an example: someone is selling a home, a property, making a legal transaction in the Philippines, and they need a relative in the Philippines to conduct that transaction for them. They now have two options. The Philippines has just signed up to the Hague Convention recognising apostilles. So what that means for the person on the street is you're selling your condo, you want your mom to withdraw the mortgage or transfer the papers. You have two options. You can come to the office, no appointment needed, walk in, pick up the special power of attorney form, fill it in. I'm a commissioner of oaths as well as consul. I was appointed by the Chief Justice of Ireland as a commissioner of oaths recently, so I can witness that oath. That's an oath. A special power of attorney form is an oath. I can witness that oath and make it a valid legal document. As consul, I can then legalise that document for use in the Philippines. So in the space of a couple of minutes, without an appointment, you can walk into the consulate and have that document with you ready to use in the Philippines. It's a valid legal document. The other option would be if you're very far from the consulate, you're based in a rural part of Ireland, you can go to a solicitor, have them witness a signature. Then you can go to the Irish Department of Foreign Affairs and they will put an Irish apostille stamp on it. That makes it a legal document. The solicitor and the DFA is a more expensive route. It's slower, but for those living quite far from the consulate and that don't have time to travel, that's a good option. So it's the times now compared to the way it was before makes life a little bit easier for Filipinos conducting business. On the Assistance to Nationals programme, which is probably, in my eyes, the most important, it is the emergency service. It's a service that I hope most of you will never have to engage with, but I hope those who do, that I'm on standby and I'm ready. Since my appointment, I've transferred the Outreach Ireland hotline number to the Philippine Consulate, and that is the emergency number. It's also through social media and email accessible to the community. We've unfortunately had the duty of repatriating a number of Filipino nationals since my appointment. Some of them were in such distress that there was no money whatsoever to cover even a basic funeral cost, and I've secured funding from the Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs for that repatriation. But the Assistance to National Programme is core baseline of the consulate, where when someone is in great distress, such as death or emergencies, that they get the best care available. Okay, and that would be a 24-hour service.
Yeah. So then, going back to the difference between the embassy and the consulate is not funded. The consul and the volunteer staff working in a consulate are not paid, they are volunteers.
Yes, that's correct. The consulate will not operate without the support team. While I am the consul, I am the one signing the documents, I cannot conduct this business without the support of the team that's around me. Many of you may have seen through social media posts, I recently appointed a Director for Trade and Business Development, Darren Smith. Director Smith has extensive experience in this field. He's he's made a number of trips to the Philippines exploring business interests, and he offered his services because he's seen a gap in the market and he's seen that the potential of developing employment in the Philippines and trade between the countries. So he's on board with that, with my support and the support of the Department of Trade in London. We then have cultural programs in the line, and we have educational programs, and as time passes I'll be appointing specific people willing to give their time up for free for the better interests of their kababayan.
And how will you be running the office if it is not funded by the Philippine government? How would you sustain the services in the coming years?
There's a small portion of the funds generated by the Consulate which is retained. Generally speaking, it would cover stationery and basic costs like that, but the office itself, the rent of the office, the transport costs when travelling to events would be absorbed by the Consul, and that's a decision I knew that's something I knew in advance of applying, but it's something I was always happy to do. I don't mind paying for the office because I get to use the office for my business as well. Although specifically the Consulate office will be the Consulate office. I have an administrative office for my own personal business, but the Consulate office I'd prefer to have as a dedicated office, but I'm happy to absorb the cost of that.
Okay. Are there any plans of opening an embassy someday soon?
As far back as last year, I was asked by the embassy to prepare a budget for a proposed, the embassy in London to prepare a budget for a proposed embassy here in Ireland. They specifically asked me because I played a major role in opening the permanent Philippine embassy before. When I was there, they opened initially in a temporary office, and I played a role in securing the permanent office and the kit out. So I was familiar with the budget of setting up an embassy and all of the tasks that are generally missed when glancing at the picture of how much will it cost. So Secretary Cantano, when he was Secretary for Foreign Affairs, declared that he will open an embassy in Ireland in the next 5 years. That is subject to Senate approval of the budget, but there are tentative plans. It's not a given that an embassy will open here, but there's a strong possibility. The fact that Ireland is opening an embassy in the Philippines would generally add a little bit more pressure for the Philippines to open an embassy here, but one of the reasons that I decided to go for this role was because I knew it wasn't likely going to be a lifetime appointment. A previous consul, John Ferris, was in the role for 18 years. It's a long time, it's a large portion of his life, and I wasn't prepared today to commit to potentially 18 years. If it turns out to be that way, you know, the decision will be made upon the renewal, if I'm offered a renewal, whether I'll accept it or not. But at the very least, I'm ready to assist the embassy and the Department of Foreign Affairs to open a permanent embassy mission in Dublin.
So you mentioned there John Ferris, who was a previous consul. When you were appointed, did you consult him or other advisors who could give some guidance on how you will run the consulate?
I consulted a number of people when I was nominated by the embassy. At that point, I wasn't aware if I was going to be approved, but I started a consultation process from people who have played a major role in the Filipino community. They may not be the most vocal, they may not call themselves a leader, but they're people that anyone that is looking at the Filipino community would recognize them as a leader. I've also contacted a number of Philippine diplomats who I've made acquaintance with over the years and asked them how they see what their vision would be. When I was then appointed, I did actually meet with the former consul John Ferris and ask him for his opinion. He's still very active in the community. I asked him for how he's seen the vision of the Philippine Consulate going forward. Things have changed a lot since John Ferris's day, and services have changed. The way services are delivered have changed, and restrictions and limitations have changed. But he gave some very useful feedback, particularly about the booking system for the Philippine Embassy Outreach Mission, which was an oversight that I don't think any of our team seen, but it will definitely be taken on board, and I'm willing to listen to any comments. My door will always be open. It's a fluid system. If we get a very valid point on how we can improve services and it's within our ability, then definitely we'll do it.
So moving on now to your other projects, any migrant community is quite divisive. It's human nature for people to just cling on to their own kababayans. And in any country, Filipinos have their own choices of who to be with. There are so many groups here in Ireland, for instance. It is divisive, but at the same time, there are things that could bring them together as well. But in your opinion, how do you think would you approach community engagement, given that there are now so many groups in Ireland, and what are your priorities in terms of engaging with the community?
It's a very good question, and it's a very important question. When I studied in the Philippines, I knew very little about the country. And I had a university lecture in first year that explained the broad history of the Philippines. And it always stuck out in my mind about if the Philippines was in Europe, it would probably be 15 countries. And there's no way we could bring those 15 countries together to unite them. And you have different religions, you have different cultures, you have over 7,000 islands, you have over 200 languages that are used on a daily basis. We have regional groups here that are based around the specific city, and we have multiple groups from the same city. It's a great plan to bring everyone together under one united group, but it needs to be community-led. I'm not going to be arrogant to say that I'm going to bring every Filipino together under one umbrella. There are campaigns and different activities that will unite the community together, such as Typhoon Haiyan. You really united the community together, but at the same time, it highlighted the diversity. The community groups, today is June 8th, the week before, or a few days before Philippine Independence Day. I attended the first Independence Day event in Ireland on last weekend, Brexit event in Cavan. It was a fantastic event. Myself and the Philippine Labour Attaché, Amy Reyes, went, and it was a wonderful celebration. This afternoon I'm attending another event in Glasnevin, which is set to be a very enjoyable event, and then following that I'll attend an event in the evening. All Independence Day events. But in relation to engaging with the community, I'm open to everyone. I'm not the consul for the group of people I know. I'm not the consul of the group of people I like. I'm the Philippine Consul to Ireland. I'm the Philippine government's representative in Ireland. I have a directive on engagement. I have a directive on consular services. I'll be engaging as much as possible, in as broad a scheme as possible, and not limiting the engagement and the interaction with the larger groups. I'm fully aware that there are some very small niche groups that have a huge impact in the community, have a huge impact in relation to culture, in education and diversity. And that's my forte. It's to try and be as wide-reaching as possible, engage it as much as possible, and have an open door policy. While my regular opening hours will be posted once the demand is established and once I set up, I'll also welcome community members to come in. If there's an issue, you can bring it to my attention if you feel I can help with it. Please, by all means. I run a business. I have a full-time job. I have a full-time job as a self-employed person, which generally speaking means I have 2 full-time jobs. I then have the consulate. I don't intend to answer every phone call. to answer every question, but I have a team that will do that. I'll have a very extensive website, but when someone needs to talk to me, they'll be able to get me. The reason they'll be able to get me is because I'm not answering questions where people can get the answer to on the website. But I will be engaging. It's a modern era. Information is available, and when people need it, they'll get it. When someone needs to speak to me, when someone has an issue, when someone wants purely a consulate representative, generally speaking, they'll get it. And there'll be an open door policy to ensure that they get it.
And are you going to be more engaged with marginalized groups? In recent years, or even now, we always put our attention on current migrant workers, but not much attention is given to Filipino migrants who are retiring or about to retire, and most especially the youth migrants who have actually integrated here in Ireland and probably have lost their connection to the Philippines. Will this be your priority as well?
I can't say there'll be any one priority within the community. It'll be as wide-reaching as possible. There will be niches I focus on for a particular period during a particular campaign. The second generation Filipinos, those that spent the majority of their life here in Ireland but are of Filipino origin or have parents of Filipino origin, it's a big part of the parents', the community and the consulate's responsibility to ensure that they maintain links with the Philippines. While most would have spent summers or vacations in the Philippines, they may not have the traditional Filipino education, so they won't know about the Rizal, they won't know about Bonifacio, they won't know about the Filipino heroes that gave them the liberties that they have today. It's through the Philippine independence that allows Filipinos to grow, to educate themselves and to travel abroad and make the future for themselves. So part of the consulate will be running cultural programs, educational programs, embracing diversity. And in relation to those retiring, the way I see it is education. Ensure that they don't waste any of the work that they've done. Make sure that they're aware of what they're entitled to, be it pensions in the Philippines or in Ireland. While I won't be specialising and I won't be giving out too much legal advice on entitlements here in Ireland, I will have, we're launching a resource centre soon, a Philippine resource centre, which was the result of a forum with industry leaders and representatives from different sectors. So we'll be launching that, and part of that will be entitlements in Ireland upon your retirement, state pensions and stuff like that.
So those are the things that you will be, those are the services that you're going to be providing to the community, and that's really good to know. If you could just say one last time to everyone, to the Filipino community here in Ireland, what are your services, what are your plans, and just to remind them that you have an open door policy as well, and everyone is welcome to join or to volunteer if they have skills and talents that they want to share in order to help the community. This is the time to tell everyone.
Well, I think the most important thing to know is that the open door policy extends to everyone. It's not extended to documented workers. It's not extended to people with a Philippine passport. It's the undocumented, it's the former Filipinos, it's the Filipinos at heart. Anyone that wants to engage in the services, the open door policy is for you. It's there for government officials to come and highlight issues they feel will enhance the Philippines. Today, in between Independence Day events, I've multiple meetings organised by Director Smith for Business Development with a number of politicians to highlight issues that are important to the Filipino community. The services that are on offer are all the usual services you'd expect from an embassy, with the exception of passports. To offset that, Outreach Ireland and now the Consulate has assisted the embassy over the last number of years to enhance those services. The new booking system. The new booking system, which is now controlled by the Consulate, allows for approximately 400 to 500 services versus the previous 200. And it's through this booking system that we are now ensuring as much as possible that those who need the passport renewal the most will get it. So it may not be when you want it, but it will be when you need it. As it is now, we have about 3,000 people applied for services through the outreach mission. Those applying for legalisation services will now be removed from that, freeing up important appointment slots. The passport renewal is given based on expiration date. Every Filipino citizen in Ireland has to renew their GNIB, their Garda Immigration, their permanent residency card. We will work towards renewing the Philippine passport in advance of that renewal date, but before that we need to clear the backlog. At the stage now, by the end of the July outreach, we will have facilitated everyone in the booking system that has a passport expiring before early December 2019. We're not there yet, we have a lot of work to do, but looking at this on a bigger picture over the next 2 years, I hope to be able to offer appointments to people to renew their passport 8 to 9 months in advance of their passport renewal. On a longer term, looking at stretching out over a number of years, if the embassy doesn't open in Ireland, then we'll be pushing that service that you're getting a passport renewal appointment a year in advance. By entering the booking system, you're in our database and we're going to approach you with an appointment. That's the longer term plan. On a day-to-day basis within the Consulate, it's community engagement, it's the Assistance National Programme for Emergency Services, and it's processing of documents on the spot. So I hope it gives you a better understanding of how the Consulate is going to operate. And if there's anyone in the community that feels that their particular services could be utilised and they're willing to give their time up for free to help their kababayan, just like the many volunteers involved in the Consulate, put yourself forward.
Is there something that you want also to share to the community? This is our service, or the Consulate service to the community, but at the same time, Filipino migrants have their own responsibilities to do as well.
Filipino migrants, just like every foreign national in the country, has a responsibility to help themselves. You, as a large employer of Filipinos in Ireland is in the medical industry. Nurses have a responsibility for continued professional development. That's an easy example. Filipino nationals living abroad have a responsibility to help themselves by renewing their passport in advance, by renewing their immigration status, by making themselves aware of what services are on offer and what they can do to help themselves. Don't wait till the last minute. If for whatever reason you don't get an appointment to renew your passport at the outreach and you feel that it's going to affect your immigration status or potentially your naturalisation or citizenship status or application, then it's time for you to take action. You need to travel to London. Many people will highlight the cost. It can be done on a morning flight coming back in the evening. If you plan it in advance, you can do it for about €150. And then the visa fee is then on top of it, so probably bring it up to about €250. But that's a step you need to take to help yourself and guarantee your own security and future.
So that's great. There you have it. We now have a lot of information there about what the Consulate will offer to the Filipino community in the coming weeks, and everything will be available in the website, which it is also being developed now as well. And there is an outreach, a Consulate hotline.
Yes.
Consulate hotline. Everything is in for now at the Outreach Ireland website. Anything you need to know about what the Consulate is going to offer, when it's going to open. We also have a Facebook page where you could find everything, and we are going to be posting this video as well just to inform everyone, because everyone just needs to know what's going to happen now. So that's it for you. That's our new Philippine Consul to Ireland, Honorary Consul to Ireland, Raymond Garrett.
Thank you.
Thank you.